Hello, beautiful soul family. Rebecca here, your Vibe mentor. Let's talk today about social media and screen addiction and how giving it up changed my life. And if you are willing to go down this path, giving up social media could change your life too in just a matter of a few short weeks. This one small change allowed me to regain my confidence, my ambition, my focus, and my willpower. I even had more motivation to accomplish my goals and dreams. And while it may seem daunting at first, I can promise you in a few short weeks, at most a month or two, you will feel like a whole new person. You might even feel like $1 million. Did you know that Americans on average spend 4 hours a day on their phone? And that's just the average. Some people spend upwards of 9 hours per day on their phone. If you look at the average of 4 hours per day, that's 11 years of your life sucked out of you by a screen. And in the book Outliers, they talk about mastery as taking 10,000 hours. In 10,000 hours, you have the ability to master something. And that is only 10 years. So that 11 years lost on screen time could be utilized to pursue your goals and dreams, to master a skill, and have a thriving, successful business. The distraction of social media causes us to procrastinate and to put off things that we want to do. It causes us to waste our lives away. It sucks our focus and attention. And when you become a conscious, aware being, you start to realize your focus and attention is the very thing that creates worlds. Not only is it sucking your soul dry, but it is limiting and prohibiting your creative capacity. It may not seem obvious, but we actually live in a focus and attention economy. The most valuable currency today is your focus and attention. And that also means your focus and attention are your greatest asset. Where your focus goes, grows. And what you think about, you will create. But you're not in control of your thinking if you're allowing your scrolling, your doom scrolling, to control your focus and attention. Notice how each new post will create a new emotion, a new feeling. You are no longer in control of your greatest asset, and you're giving your life force energy away. It's helpful to remember this is a relatively new issue or challenge for humanity, but it's not our fault. The cards are stacked against us. Big companies like Facebook and Apple utilize something called an attention engineer to create these programs and these signals and these processes that continue to draw us back in based on our dopamine system. In fact, they use the same type of engineering that is used in gambling machines in casinos. Add to that, we are struggling with the way that our world is operating right now. Dr. Gabor Mate, a medical doctor, went so far as to say that our society is traumatizing, and a vast majority of diseases are caused by the trauma we are experiencing from our environment. Our schools are designed to feed the assembly line instead of nurture the inherent gifts and talents in our students. Corporations are driven by profit alone and very rarely care about what is best for humanity. Social media depicts a false humanity and faux relationships. And unfortunately, that keeps us from real connection, love, and support. We are more disconnected from nature than ever before, and we are lacking the very things that are needed as a collective humanity to be able to thrive. We are only surviving right now. We are more disconnected from nature than ever before, and we are deprived of the very things that we need to be able to thrive. And there's a part of us that knows there's just something off. There's something missing. There's something not quite right about the way we are living our lives. And when our needs are not met, we require a coping mechanism to be able to tolerate and to numb out and to suppress the feelings that are calling our attention, but we can't quite put our finger on what's wrong, what's missing. And because we can't figure out what the problem is, we can't find a solution. And that can be depressing, that feeling of not knowing how to solve this challenge or escape this issue will cause us to fall into mental health challenges. And yes, while these social media platforms and cell phone notifications are built to grab our attention and leverage the dopamine system. At the end of the day, if we were happy and satisfied and out living our lives, we wouldn't struggle with a social media addiction quite as much as we do. Oftentimes, we are leaning on social media to run from feelings we don't know how to deal with. We were taught to suppress or run from things that are uncomfortable. Unfortunately, the world is hard and people are sad, and we severely lack fulfillment and purpose in our lives. And that can be depressing when we don't see a way out. We want to avoid boredom and uncomfortable feelings. And when I look back at the times when I was most addicted to social media, it was the most difficult times of my life. Times when I felt trapped or I felt like life was hopeless and there was no way out. I was dealing with a toxic relationship, trying to escape that, all while with a young little boy, not knowing how to survive in the world as a single mother with little to no support network or family, because I had also had a toxic childhood and the issues were compounding over time throughout my life. It just became too much and I had to check out. I didn't see any other way. And so I turned to the easiest thing that I could find, and that was my phone. I would spend hours and sometimes even an entire weekend scrolling IG Reels or Facebook posts or YouTube videos. Although they were educational, I used that as a crutch, told myself a story that I was learning something or I was studying. Heaven forbid I actually binge an entire Netflix series. But it's those tricky, socially acceptable addictions that get us. I told myself it was entertainment or I was learning something. And so I was able to justify it for a very long time. And yes, I was studying spirituality and learning about narcissistic abuse and how to heal from trauma, but I was never actually implementing what I was learning. I just continued to consume more and more information. No matter how many videos, no matter how amazing they were, I still needed more. It was never enough. I rarely put things into action and I just kept consuming. I remember times where it was a beautiful, gorgeous day out. The windows were open, the sun was shining, there was a gentle breeze. I could hear people playing outside. Maybe the neighbors were, grilling something yummy on the grill and playing yard games and having that feeling of, I really wish I was out there with them. And yet I couldn't get myself to put the phone down. I couldn't muster up the energy to go out and create those experiences for myself. And that was depressing. I felt like, what a pathetic life that I have. And of course, that came with shame and feeling like I can't get my stuff together. I can't get my life together. It was clear the addiction was controlling my life. And over time, it stopped fulfilling the need. It stopped satisfying the urge. I struggled to get through long form content. I struggled to find a short form video that gave me that hit or that satisfaction that the first one did. I didn't have patience to read, and I was developing ADHD-like symptoms. I would bounce from one thing to the next, constantly looking for something to satisfy an urge I couldn't put my finger on. And you add that to my unhealed trauma, and I very easily could have gotten a prescription for Adderall. But what's most fascinating about my journey with social media was that I quit not because I forced myself or because I tried, but because I started to heal. I was learning about trauma and understanding more about self-love and self-care. And what I discovered was doom scrolling or social media addiction is actually indicative of a trauma response. Whether or not you experienced something very difficult in your childhood, or you just didn't have your needs met. Even like I said, Gabor Mate mentioning the world alone is traumatizing. We collectively as a society are exhibiting quite a few trauma responses, one of which is social media addiction. It is known as a dorsal vagal state, otherwise more easily or commonly known as the freeze state. We are in consumption mode and we continue to take in more and more, and we are not able to shift out of consuming and into giving. Typically, when you're learning new things, you're mastering skills through education and consuming, you then turn around and offer that skill to the world. But we're not doing that. The pain of being stuck in a life that we can't seem to resolve, or we can't seem to find fulfillment, or especially the younger generations who are not allowed to pursue their talents and their gifts or explore their dreams. There is an innate knowing within us that something isn't right. I am not made to go to work so that I can spend money, so that I can go to work so that I can spend money and pay taxes and end up in this rat race. There's a knowing in our heart and our body and in our soul that says we've got to do something more. And when we can't seem to find that outlet out there, we get depressed and we need that coping mechanism, and we have to deal with just tolerating life. And that creates depression in the body. The nervous system needs to shut down. It is safer to hide behind my phone and just scroll than it is to try to buck the system or to break free and become a truly free human. It feels safer than risking rejection or judgment or criticism. And at the end of the day, our nervous system is just trying to keep us from experiencing more pain. How do you know if you're experiencing a dorsal vagal state of your nervous system? Here's a list of things to look out for. Obviously, excessive consumption would be number one. Depression, anxiety, numbness, bed rot. Otherwise, some people might call it laziness, but it's really not laziness. It is that freeze, shutdown state. Maybe you get overwhelmed easily, or you struggle with focus and attention, or you have brain fog. Trauma, in its simplest definition, is just an overwhelmed capacity to respond to life's demand. In psychology, there's something called the diathesis model. Essentially, we are like a cup, and our stress or our life experiences are kind of like the water. And as we fill up, what happens when we get too full? We've taken on too much. We can't handle what life is throwing at us. We spill over. And that's exactly what it's like when we experience a dorsal vagal shutdown. The key is to learn to heal utilizing the body and somatic healing therapies like trauma spotting to empty your stress or empty the water out of your cup. As you start to heal, as you start to empty your cup, you will need less social media. And when I started to heal and empty my cup, I needed less social media, which also meant my dopamine levels started to normalize again. And just to explain the dopamine phenomenon a little bit, when we look at our screen and we see something really amazing, it increases our dopamine levels 2x. But the next time we see something we like, we get a little bit less of a dopamine increase. And that pulls us into the cycle of looking for the next big dopamine increase, but we will never achieve that initial 2x result in that setting or session. We'll have to extract ourselves from that moment in time and go back to doing other mundane things, which will seem even less rewarding because our dopamine has increased, and we will have to wait for it to come back down to baseline. Dopamine is in the body naturally most of the time. We have a pretty consistent, steady baseline. Things like exercise or chocolate can increase it a bit. These normal peaks and valleys are very healthy and normal. It is the high, unnatural peaks that cause the dip that is very uncomfortable. As an example, if you used to like bike riding, but you have started a social media habit, after you're done scrolling and you go to try to ride your bike, you're not going to be able to enjoy riding your bike because riding your bike, that natural peak, is far less compared to that unnatural spike created by social media. But as we refrain from social media, our dopamine levels will come back to baseline. And now as you go to ride your bike, that natural peak that you would have gotten seems far more worth it, far more enjoyable. You get the reward that you were looking for from that dopamine raise. Things like alcohol, drugs, pornography, they also create unnaturally high spikes in dopamine. So we want to learn to work with our dopamine system. It is designed to help motivate us. It is called the reward molecule. We have adapted this system because when we were out foraging for food and we found berries or we found something that was nourishing or good for us, we got that dopamine spike or reward to keep us coming back, to keep us searching for that thing again in the future. But unfortunately, when misused, we lose satisfaction, we lose motivation, we lose desire to pursue and focus on things that are good for us. And when we consume things like social media, drugs, or alcohol, or pornography, it causes us to crave more. And the more we consume, the more hungry we get, and it is a vicious cycle. It's important to remember there's a lot of amazing and great things out there in life to experience. We just have to retrain our dopamine system, and over time, we will learn to love the things we used to love again. And at first, it might seem difficult. It might take a month or two at most. For me, it was only a couple of weeks. So just depends on how ingrained and entrenched in it you are. Some will say you will go through withdrawals because it is an addiction. But let's remember, you don't have to suffer through this process. What you say to yourself and the thoughts that you think as you move through this will determine how you experience it. If you're telling yourself a story about how difficult it is and how painful it is and how I just want my social media, then you will suffer. It's important to look at what do you say when you talk to yourself. If you're encouraging yourself and reminding yourself, this is the most amazing thing I've ever done, I'm taking my life back. That thing was sucking my soul dry. I'm getting 11 years of my life back. This is exciting. I get to love the things I used to love again, and I get to love life again, and I will have motivation again, and I get to create a life of my dreams. Then each day will keep getting better and better, and you will take your life back, and it won't be so painful. Another important factor to look at is the connection challenge. You have to be honest with yourself. How much validation were you getting from likes and comments, and what were you really seeking? How can we cultivate that naturally and healthily in our daily life? If you are afraid of losing friends or being lonely, give them your phone number. Call them on the phone. Don't just text or wait for a social media post, but actually engage in real relationships. If that was your primary method of social engagement, you might lose a few friends. If you lose them, they were not real friends in the first place. They were faux relationships, or they were superficial relationships that only look for something from you, and they're not willing to create that reciprocating relationship that you need to feel satisfaction, support, love, and fulfillment in your life. Remember not to seek validation outside of yourself. Everything you need is within you, and everything that you think you need from someone else, you can give to yourself. And as we love on ourselves, we show up for ourselves, and we meet our own needs, we then will attract people who will do the same for us. Remember that moving through difficult feelings requires your love, your presence, your focus, and your attention. Notice, how are you feeling? Give it words. Notice what area of your body calls your attention most, and listen for your body to speak to you and help you understand what it is that you need and how you can meet that need in that moment. It is true, your needs deserve to be met, but they are not always to be met by others. Oftentimes, we have to meet our own needs first. Remember that emotions and bodily signals are signs that help point to areas where we can improve or grow or meet a need, or better yet, achieve a life worth living. Remember that boredom is healthy. J.K. Rowling wrote her first book on a boring 4-hour train ride. Imagine if she had had a phone or tablet, she never would have given birth to that book. You've heard the phrase, be still and know. It requires stillness for us to be able to hear the guidance, to listen to ourselves, and to feel that call. Be still and know means we only find the answers we seek in silence. Boredom gives way to creativity. Decreasing stimuli allows us to consider what is truly important to us. And that is necessary for us to be able to create plans and set goals to achieve the things we truly desire. Humans are made to create, and we're not happy if we're not moving towards a goal. You may have heard the phrase growing or dying. We are either growing and evolving and moving towards our highest potential and fully self-actualizing, or we are dying. And that's why it can be so uncomfortable to be stuck in a social media addiction, because we are stagnant. And when stagnant, we are dying. This is why self-actualization is at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So after you commit to putting down the social media addiction, start to ask questions around, who am I? What do I want for my life? Who do I want to become? What goals do I want to set? How would the person I want to become behave? Would they have these habits? Ask yourself, what makes you happy? What do you want to pursue? What did you used to love to do? What books did you want to read? What hobbies can you pick up? And remember, over time, the joy will increase around these activities. And once you finally get that back, you can start to follow your joy, follow your bliss. It will lead you towards your purpose and a life of fulfillment. Remember, the solution is going to be different for everyone. What was right for me may not be right for you. The key is to trust yourself and know that you have a guidance system built in within you. Honor your needs, honor your desires, and remember the divine made you perfectly imperfect for a purpose. So there is something really amazing about you You have gifts and talents that maybe were hidden that you have never really tapped into that can now start to flourish and present themselves. And keep in mind, purpose is the path to happiness and fulfillment. When you finally break free from the social media addiction, you will regain your motivation, regain your patience, your ability to focus, the amount of fulfillment and satisfaction you get out of the things that you love to do. You'll be able to stick with things that were previously hard to do, and you will regain mental clarity. And as you fall back in love with the things you used to do, you will regain your confidence, your ambition, and your motivation. Somehow breaking that cycle of addiction makes it easier for us to be happy. So I have 11 quick tips for you to help you get started on breaking your social media addiction. Number 1, quick and easy, turn your phone on silence. Number 2, turn off all notifications with the exception of phone calls. All of your text messages, all of your applications, even your email, no notifications at all. Number 3, turn on grayscale. It's somehow less interesting to look at a phone that's black and white. Color draws us in. Number 4, delete all of the apps that you use most. If you're like me and you have a business online, utilize a second phone that is a Wi-Fi only, or use a laptop to access the apps that you do work on. Number 5, move the apps that you do leave in place to the second or third screen so that you have to consciously move over to get to them, which makes you think about using them and it's less habitual. Number 6, turn off tap to wake. So if your phone turns on just by you touching the screen, that makes it easier for you to just subconsciously turn on the phone. We want to turn that off so that you have to push the button to wake up your phone, making it again more difficult to do subconsciously. And you have to think about what you're doing. Number 7, turn off raise to wake. If your phone automatically wakes up just because you pick it up, turn off that feature so that you have to push the button and be consciously thinking about what you are doing. Number 8, leave your phone at the door. Many people will have a phone tray at their door and it has to stay there as long as they are home. The phone is for phone calls only from now on. Number 9, use music instead. If you're one of those people who needs something going on in the background, create a playlist, press play, and do not skip or change the song. Just let it go. Number 10, meditation. If you're struggling with wanting to get on your phone, go into meditation. And number 11, talk to the divine. Create a personal, intimate relationship with your creator, whether you call it God or the universe or a higher power, it doesn't matter. There is something greater outside of you. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing we seek when we go to social media or we look outside of ourselves for fulfillment and peace and joy, the thing we seek is a connection with our creator. Don't forget to pick up a book. Books are amazing. Pick up a hobby. Do something to make life worth living. You are a creator. You can create a beautiful life. We are all in this together and we are creating a new world. So we need your focus and attention back here. Put down that social media and come join us in creating heaven on earth. I love you, my friends. Namaste.